Hello everybody, welcome to class today. Like I've mentioned in the past, we're going to start a new project today called magazine design. And those of you that are familiar with magazines, I asked you to bring a copy of a magazine that you like for us to take a look at. But how many of you guys are actually familiar with magazines at all? How many of you guys have read a magazine in the last week? Raise your hand. Nobody? What about in the last month? Okay, what about this week? Oh, you guys have. Fantastic. Mr. Tiger, did you bring a magazine today? Sports Illustrated, one of my favorites. Looks like Mr. Tiger likes to read about the horse races. That's excellent. Mrs. Bear, you have a magazine here too. What magazine do you have with you today? National Wildlife, fantastic. Why do you like that magazine? Really? Excellent. I don't know if you guys heard that, but she said that she likes National Wildlife magazine because it's got wildlife in it. Crazy. So yeah, these are excellent magazines for you guys. These are magazines that you guys are actually the target market for, or the target audience. That's something we're going to be talking about as we get through this. But first, why do you guys think that these magazines are still popular today? Because people like to read them, perhaps. Yes, that's a good answer, Mr. Tiger. Who else? Okay. Mrs. Bear had an excellent point. She said that people that read magazines are reading magazines that interest them and that cater to their interests, their likes, dislikes, things of that nature. Excellent points, guys. The project that you guys are going to be working on is going to involve two phases. The first phase that we're going over right now is the cover design. The second phase is going to be a team project where you guys actually work on a full magazine together. We're going to talk more about this in detail, but the way it's going to go down is that you guys are all going to come up with an idea or a concept for a magazine design. Of your own creation. And then you're going to pitch it to the class with a presentation and basically try to get votes for your magazine to be the one that your team produces. I'm going to tell you a brief story about some magazine experience that I have. I've worked at D Magazine. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that. It's a magazine for Dallas, simply called D Magazine. And they also have a custom publications department in which I spent a lot of time working on a variety of magazines. The guy that was my boss there, his name was Mark Mahorsky. And the most valuable lesson that I ever learned from him, being a type of person that has worked on many, many, many magazines, was that you have to do it because you love it. You have to do it because it's a passion of yours, and you have to do it because it's something that interests you. You're not going to get full credit for the work that you do on a magazine. I know a lot of you guys as designers want to get full credit for everything that you do. But the scenario with the magazines that I was working on, I asked Mark, I said, hey, am I going to get my name in these magazines because I'm the designer here? And because I was just freelancing for them, he said no. He's like, your name won't be in the magazines. So that was a big lesson to me that, you know, it's a great profession, it's fun, magazines are great and cool, but you have to do it because you love it. It's not about fame and glory and all of that good stuff. So the key is that you get to do a lot of really fun work in a fun environment, hopefully. Let me ask you guys a question. Do you think that the magazine industry is dying or growing? Mr. Tiger, I don't know if you guys heard what he said, but Mr. Tiger said that he thought that the magazine industry was totally dying because of the digital revolution and cell phones and all of that. What do you think, Mrs. Bear? Do you think it's growing? Why? Oh, that's an excellent point. I don't know if you guys heard what she said, but she said that she thinks that the magazine industry is growing because there's a lot of places where you can't use digital devices. Some examples of that might be like the airport or a doctor's office or any type of huge cavernous building that doesn't have a good cell phone reception. That's why you still see a lot of magazine racks at the airports, things of that nature, and doctors' offices. Let's kind of dig right in now to some history about magazines and their target audiences. Some of the earliest magazines date all the way back to about the 1600s, okay? This one here was one of the first magazines. I can't even pronounce that. It's a German magazine. It was released in the year 1663. And you guys don't have to write all of this down. I've actually provided a copy of this presentation on the assignments folder on your computer, so you'll have that there for your reference. But do keep in mind that this information will be on your test, written test that you'll be having soon. The first English language magazine publication was called Review, and it was first published in London in 1704. And here's a magazine that you guys might find that looks familiar. It's called Gentleman's Magazine. It was the first modern magazine published in January 1731. All right. How many of you guys have ever heard of GQ magazine? Do you know what GQ stands for? Excellent, Mr. Tiger. He said it stands for Gentleman's Quarterly. I don't believe that these two magazines were connected, but they probably had a lot of the same content, things that were interesting to men. Advertisements for maybe sporting equipment or stories about things going on in the business world. Okay, so it was first published January 1731. Advertisements first appeared in the 19th century. There's some samples of some various advertisements of things that were popular in the day. If you guys didn't know this, magazines and pretty much the whole publication industry, like newspapers, things of that nature, is driven by advertisements. Okay, those are the elements that actually pay for the pages to get printed. Okay, one of the key things about this is that the first advertisements, you can see here, they were geared toward a target audience. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. Everything in the magazine, from the advertisements to the photography to all the design elements, have to cater to a specific target audience. And we'll talk more about that in just a second. Who do you think, let's talk about target audience for a second. Mr. Tiger, who do you think the target audience is for Sports Illustrated? Okay? Excellent. If you guys didn't hear that, he said Mr. Tiger. Mr. Tiger said that Sports Illustrated is probably geared toward anybody that likes sports. That could be tigers that like sports. It could be people that like sports, kids, adults, men, women, all sorts of stuff. So if you look at these magazines, you can see that they're actually designed front to back, from the cover, the advertisements, everything. They're all designed to kind of cater to a sporting type of market or audience. So the typography looks, kind of sporty and athletic. The photographs show sports and athletics going down. Even the color schemes that are chosen are kind of reflective of the sporting community. So those are excellent points. Let's look at some of these magazines and let's talk about some of the elements that are on the covers. What items do you think must be on a magazine's cover? Like, these are the things that absolutely have to be on there without a doubt every time. If you look at all of the magazines in front of you, what are some of the elements that you see on them? Masthead, fantastic. If you guys don't know what this is, it's the thing right here at the very top of the magazine that is the name of the magazine. It's called a masthead. All right. Usually it's just typography. There's very seldom there's any graphics in it. In regard to the masthead, the size and the placement are key. They're always up at the top. That has to do with the way that magazines are actually set on a shelf. You can only see the tops of the magazine, and the name must be bold and recognizable from a distance so that people can see it and want to buy it. The font choice of the masthead is key to a successful masthead, and it sets the tone for the entire magazine. Why do you guys think that it has to be recognizable from a distance? Mr. Tiger? You think that so people will buy it, right? Excellent. Well, why do you want people to buy it? Exactly, so that people can make money. So that the clients can make money, the advertisers can make money, the stores can make money. But it has to be bold and recognizable from a distance in order to achieve that. Because let's take, for example, that you're at Barnes & Noble and you're sitting there waiting at the Starbucks to get your iced coffee, and you look across and you see a whole rack of magazines. You want your magazine to be the one that stands out so that people, when they look at it from a distance, they can actually see it, recognize it, walk over and pick it up and hopefully buy it. Cover photo. Cover photo must be powerful and eye-catching as well. Again, size equals importance. The crop can make all of the difference. If you guys remember when we talked about Photoshop, the crop is actually the way that the photo is cropped, the way that it's cut out. And again, it also sets the tone for the entire magazine. All right. The teaser text. This is what we're calling the headlines and subheadlines that are on the cover. Like, for example, right here, if you can see that, we've got 50-1, Miracle in the Mud, the Derby long shot winning, blah, blah, blah. These are headlines and subheadlines and teaser text. And you see that they are done up here as well. This basically showcases what's going to be in the magazine. Okay, again, size equals importance. Okay, this is the cover story about the Derby and about horse racing. This is not. That's why this is really small. These get larger and smaller as they increase and decrease in importance. So keep that in mind. And changing up the weight of the fonts and the colors adds a dynamic appeal to those teaser texts. Barcode and price information. If you look in the bottom corner, pretty much in every magazine there's going to be barcodes. In the instance where there's not a barcode, that's because those are subscription magazines that have been mailed to someone's house. Okay. So you're going to have that, or otherwise people cannot buy your magazine and make what? Money. Exactly. All right, let's talk about what makes a good cover versus a great cover. It's got to have, like we talked about, bold dynamic photography, well-executed typography that's got to be striking and legible from a distance. And remember, it sets the tone. The cover always sets the tone. What are your thoughts on this cover right here? Good cover or bad cover? Okay, Mr. Tiger, you say it's a bad cover. Why do you think it's a bad cover? Okay. All right, excellent. I don't know if you guys heard that, but what he was saying is that it's a bad cover because nobody likes this guy. He bombed the Boston Marathon, right? Why would you want to put him on the cover? My thinking is that Rolling Stone did it for shock value, okay? Mrs. Bear, what is your thought on that? You think it's a bad cover? Okay. Why do you think it's a bad cover? Okay, because it glorifies death and destruction, and that's not really a good thing. But think about this. In regard to this cover, okay, read what it says in the bottom right corner. It says, "The Bomber," really big. Right? So that gets your attention. This guy just looks like a kid sitting in his room playing video games, but he's actually, the guy responsible for this horrific marathon bombing in Boston. But listen to what it says. It says, how a popular promising student was failed by his family and fell into radical Islam and became a monster. All right? That message is for parents, okay? Because there's a lot of parents out there that don't want their child turning into a monster and doing some horrific act like this young fellow did. Okay, so they're trying to cover many bases. Trying to reach the kids who might be interested in why this guy did it. Trying to get the parents. It might be like a preventative type of thing. So just some interesting things about that cover. Let's move on. Reaching the target audience. Why is it important for a magazine to reflect its readership audience? What do you guys think? Excellent. Mr. Tiger, you nailed it right on the head. It's important for a magazine to reflect its readership audience so that they can keep the magazine selling and making money. Excellent point. Otherwise, like you said, in your answer, if people don't like to read the magazine and it's not a magazine for them, then they're actually not going to buy it. And people aren't going to make what, Mrs. Bear? Money. That's right. Reaching the target audience. In order to do that, the design elements must align with the audience's interests, preferences, tastes. That means that the fonts have to reflect the audience. The photography has to reflect the audience, and the use of color and layout and design. All right, you don't want to use bold and bright colors on a magazine. Let's say maybe for retired senior citizens or people that maybe if it's a skateboarding magazine, you don't want to use a real classic type of font. All right, so it's got to reflect the audience. The media language in the magazine has to be audience appropriate. It must be written with the audience in mind. Typically, we're dealing with like young people versus older folks, conservative versus liberal. All right, and reader comprehension and retention is key. All right, again, to use the skateboarding magazine example, if you have an article that's written by a skater for a skater, you know, they're going to understand what it's saying. But if you have some of that lingo and jargon in an article that is meant for, let's say, some retired individuals looking at a magazine article about traveling to Florida, and there's all this like righteous and bro and rad and all that stuff, all this skater lingo, it's not going to work, okay? So the media language, the actual writing that's in the magazine has to be written for the audience, and it has to have the audience in mind for it to reach the target audience to sell the magazine. Why do you guys think it's important? Why do you think these elements are crucial for a magazine's success? Okay, excellent point, Mr. Tiger. He says, again, it's crucial because if you don't, the magazine's not going to sell. People aren't going to buy it, and people aren't going to make money. You guys are getting this, finally. And that's excellent because this is commercial graphic design and illustration, and it's all about serving the client so the client can make money, so that people can pay the bills and everybody's happy. Excellent. All of the magazine features and the editorial content have to be audience-based as well. We just talked about that, but it must reflect the audience's interests, and it must adapt as the audience changes and grows. Again, why do you think it's important for a magazine to adapt and change as their audience grows? Okay, excellent point, Mrs. Bear. Mrs. Bear says that as the audience gets older and ages, like for example with Rolling Stone magazine, they're not still covering some of the same artists, and they don't have some of the same writers, and they're not writing for the same people that they were back in 1971 when they started, 70. But you know, so they have to change and grow, and they have to change with the trends, and they have to stay up to par and stay current with what's happening now, as well as reflecting on the past, which is important. But ultimately, if they don't adapt and grow and change and progress, they're going to stop selling magazines, and they're going to stop making what, Mr. Bear? Money, exactly. All right. So you guys are probably wanting to know what your assignment is. Your first assignment is to create your own magazine cover. And here's your task. Your task is to develop a concept for a new magazine that appeals to a specific audience and create a magazine cover. The magazine project must be an original creation. That means it's not copied. You need to check it against Google to make sure that there's no other magazines out there with that name. It needs to be 100% unique. Make sure that you choose a concept that you're passionate about. Make sure that you create a unique cover design and layout. Okay? Make sure that all of your fonts, photos, colors, the layout choices that you make sure that it's all designed to correlate with a specific target audience. Make sure that you have appropriate and interesting editorial content. You guys have got a on your desktop, actually on the hard drive of your computer, you have a tutorial video, a technical demonstration that I recorded. It's a screen recording, kind of like this one, that has me actually showing you how to start designing a magazine cover and how to basically construct it. All the design choices are going to be up to you as far as the colors, the font choices, the photography and everything. And so make sure you watch that. You've got an assignment brief right next to it in the same assignment file for this project. It lists everything that you need to do. If you have any questions, make sure you consult with your art director first and or your neighbor next to you. I'm going to be going around the room trying to help people get started. If those people can't answer your question, come to me and I'll be happy to help you. So have fun. Make sure that you get creative. Okay. Here's a basic overview of the sizes. You'll also find this in your assignment folder. Okay. Those are the design sizes right there. It's an A4 magazine size. Okay. Your first phase 1 assignment that's due is to give me your brainstorm ideas and 10 masthead sketches due in the Dropbox at the end of the next class period. All right, let's go to work.